News24 has published the first of an explosive expose detailing tender irregularities at Eskom to the tune of a whopping 178 billion rand. The Eskom Files are an investigation into an alleged criminal network responsible for South Africa's power crisis. The report includes details of how the state-owned utility was fleeced of billions of rand by private multinational firms. A trove of thousands of leaked documents form a paper trail that led to shocking revelations of how corrupt executives helped fund or helped themselves to hundreds of contracts in the mega-build projects of Kusile, Midupi and Ingula power stations. Adrian Besson is editor-in-chief at News24, joins us now via video link to tell us more. Adrian, great to chat to you. Thanks so much for making time. As you heard there in that intro, it's been described as a criminal network responsible for South Africa's power crisis. Quite the indictment that. Let's begin by you just setting the scene for us about the information you received and how you began piecing together the pieces of the puzzle.
Good morning, Ayanda. Good morning to your viewers. Yes, look, indeed, I think in an editorial that we published yesterday with our first stories, we went back to 2001, actually, when Eskom was awarded the best run power utility in the world. In 2001, under this government, by the way, the Eskom was the best run power utility in the world. It made a profit, and it was destined for higher things. Ayana, you will remember that with the Kusile and the Midupi power plants, some of the biggest coal power plants in the world, the suggestion and the indication was clearly that they would change our fortunes with regards to power supply, that something like load shedding would be something of the past. What turns out and what we can prove now is that it's been a decade of absolute looting. And I think what these documents show us, and we were leaked thousands and thousands of emails, forensic reports by attorneys, bank statements. What they show us is that state capture, as we've come to know it, and specifically with the hearings before Judge Zondo, was not only limited to the top 2 or 3 people, the minister, the president, and the CEO of a company, but it went much deeper in an entity like Eskom. It went 2, 3, 4 layers deeper with executives on these power plants and in very senior positions in Eskom lining their pockets, obviously ably assisted by these multinational contractors who got billions and billions of rands from Eskom in tenders on these projects.
Sure. For its part, Eskom is saying in response to some of your probing that I think it's over 100 criminal cases have actually been opened and several investigations have also been launched. But how many of the people who are implicated, as far as you know, still occupy a post within Eskom?
There are many people left in Eskom who do not want change, who do not want the system to change, but there are also people who've been suspended under the new regime at Eskom. So what our investigation so far has shown, for example, Ayanda, is that there was a slush fund called Babinatlo into which money was paid for the benefit of several Eskom executives that funded their lifestyles from this. Some of these people are still in Eskom, others have been suspended. But I think the important point that you and me and probably all South Africans want to know is when are they going to prison, when are they going to court, when are we going to see criminal prosecutions for these state capturers?
Absolutely, and let's hone in on that. I mean, the evidence is mounting, is becoming increasingly undeniable. From your reading, where is the bottleneck, if that is the issue? Where are things going wrong? Why aren't these translating into criminal cases with successful prosecutions?
I think it is twofold. I think on the one hand, there's not the will in certain institutions to make this happen. There may not be a political will under certain political leaders. Although President Ramaphosa wants to convince us that the ANC has turned a leaf, that it is a new ANC, as he tried to assert last week before the Zondo Commission, there are definitely many people left in SOEs and in the party itself who does not want to turn that leaf, who are not ready to do that because they know they might go to prison for a long time. Secondly, I would argue that I think in NPA specifically, the prosecuting authority has been captured to such an extent during the Zuma years that it is still struggling to get back onto its feet, and that an entity like the Investigating Directorate is still trying to fathom the extent of what's going on, and getting the capacity to prosecute these cases. We are talking of billions and billions of rands. It's not the good old corruption of a bribe for a gift in return.
Yeah.
This is absolute capture. So I'm not convinced that we have the capacity and the and the people and skill in the law enforcement agencies to bring some of these cases to book. They will have to pick. They will have to pick a few cases to make examples and hope that that sends a message to South Africa.
Wow. We'll speak about what that means for possibly recovering this money. Before then, though, you make a good point in trying to help us locate the scale of the graft that might have taken place. That 175 billion rand, according to some calculations that you put together, is enough to fully vaccinate South Africans 20 times over.
Ayanda, I've done many corruption stories in my life, and I must say my eyes are still popping when I hear these amounts. It is, and I think that's the reason why we've put the full amount in our headline yesterday, because it's just incredible the amount of money that's been used by Eskom over these years. If you think of the budget of the country or certain departments, Eskom is huge. Eskom is massive. This is not millions, this is billions and hundreds of billions. So yes, what we reported yesterday was that Bowman's attorneys, who was originally appointed by Eskom, then sacked by management and then brought back by Andre de Ruyter and his team, that they have estimated that so far, and this is not complete, Ayanda, they're still busy, so far they've identified tenders worth 178 billion rand that were either tainted by corruption or some form of wrongdoing, where Eskom lost money. And I mean, you can just look at the recent reportage on Eskom's debt. This is the biggest risk to our country. You referred earlier to the ratings agencies that are going to speak today. Yeah. Eskom's debt is probably the biggest risk to our economy. And now we know where some of that money went. It went into the pockets of executives, and that is why the Eskom story is linked. Everything to do with Eskom, with our power crisis, with load shedding, is linked to the looting that's been happening for the past decade.
Absolutely. I mean, the exact figure, and I'm going to try actually just read it all out just to drive the point home. 178,160,990,959.84. You speak about the NPA, the Hawks, etc., possibly having to choose which of these cases to pursue, with the hopes that it will send some kind of chilling effect. With that in mind, what are the prospects of us being able to recover this money?
Look, I think we will not recover all of it. A lot of it will be in foreign bank accounts, would have been spent on luxury German vehicles, etc. But there will hopefully be some properties. We'll show some of those properties in the next few days. There will be some properties that the state can reclaim through the asset forfeiture unit. We hope that the state can at least reclaim some of that. And just importantly, Ayanda, I have to state, I hope that the state also goes very hard against the multinational companies that paid the bribe. I always say, with every corrupt transaction, there is a private sector party involved. Sure. When you talk about state tender corruption, there's always a private sector party. That's part of the corrupt dance, so to speak. So I hope that the state also goes after them, and maybe we can see some reparations there as well.
One can only live in hope, especially once you try to get a grasp of the scale of the looting that might have taken place. Adrian Besson, thanks very much indeed for letting us in on what you've been able to find. Adrian is the editor-in-chief at News24. Thanks very much indeed again.